Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me on another video. In this one, I'm going to show you how to knit the bee stitch in 2 colors. Last week, I showed the bee stitch in 1 color and I provided a link to that video right here if you want to check that out. But in this one, I'm going to first show you how to knit the stitch itself in 2 colors, and then I'll provide the details for how I made this little mug cozy for my mug. I think the 2 color stitch provides a very wonderful effect, as you can see here with these alternating rows in the different colors, and the fabric itself is quite dense. So let's see how the stitch is knit up in 2 colors. Now what you first want to do is designate your 2 colors as your main color and your alternate color, or you could also call it color A and color B. So for this demonstration, this light gray is going to be my main color or color A, and the blue one is going to be my alternate color or contrasting color or color B. So you cast on an odd number of stitches with the main color or color A, and then the very first setup row is just a knit all the way through. And that's it. That's the setup row. You only do that 1 time. Then you turn your work, and now you're going to start the actual pattern, which is going to be a 4-row repeat. Now row 1 of the pattern is going to be done with the second color, with color B. So go ahead and leave about a 4-inch or so tail of the second color. Just make a loop like that, and we're going to start knitting with that second color. So the pattern goes, you knit 1, and so you're going to take this looped yarn, the color B, and just start knitting with it. There, you've joined the second color. Don't worry about the tail right now. I'll show you what to do with that in just a second. So the pattern goes, you knit the first stitch, in the second stitch you knit below. So you're not knitting into the stitch, but you're knitting into this hole below the stitch. So you're going to insert your needle into that hole and knit it. And then you drop the stitch. That's called knit 1 below. That's going to be your pattern repeat all the way to the last stitch. So let's see that a few more times. Knit 1 below, knit 1 below, and one more time, knit 1 below. And then when you get to the last stitch, you're just going to knit it. Okay, that's the end of, sorry, let me move my mug before I break it. That's the end of row 1, and that is the right side of your work. You're going to turn your work, and now you're going to do row 2 still with that same color, color B, and row 2 is just going to be a knit all the way across. And that's the end of row 2. Now you'll notice that this very last stitch is a little bit on the looser side, and that's because I hadn't done anything with this little yarn that was hanging. What you want to do is just take that yarn, tighten it up a little bit, take this color A, and then just tie a light knot. It's fine. At the end we'll be weaving all the yarn tails in. And that's the end of row 2. Then you turn your work, and for row 3, now you switch to color A. To switch to color A, you're going to take this color B yarn, hold it towards the back. You're going to bring your color A yarn, hold it here, and you're going to start knitting with that. So the very first stitch in the pattern for this row is going to be the knit 1 below. So here we go. Here's since we tightened it up a little bit, you may have to pry it, but here's the below stitch. So we're going to go ahead and knit into that hole. That's knit 1 below, and then knit 1. And that's your pattern repeat all the way to the last stitch. And when you get to the last stitch, you're going to knit 1 below. So again, this last stitch sometimes is a little bit tight. You may have to pry it a little bit to find that hole underneath, and then you knit into that hole and drop the stitch. And that's the end of row 3. You're going to turn your work, and row 4 is just a knit all the way through, again with color A. And that's the end of row 4. You're going to turn your work, and you're going to keep repeating rows 1 through 4. Remember that very first setup row of all knit, don't do that one. That's just done 1 time. You're just going to keep doing rows 1 through 4. Just keep in mind, each time you switch colors, make sure you just do the same thing. Take the color that you're just done with, take it towards the back, the color that you now want to knit with, bring it in the front, and then knit with that. And once you keep doing that, then your work will start to look like this. Once you're done with your work, you can just do a regular bind off in the same color as the starting color. So color A is what you will use to do a bind off, so that it has the same look at the end. Now for this mug cozy, I just used some leftover yarn really, and what I did was knit up a small sample first using the 2-color B-stitch with these 2 colors and the needle size that I wanted to use. The other things that you'll need for this is you'll need a crochet hook if you want to make these little loops like I did, but I'll also show you an alternate thing that you could do with this. You'll also need a tapestry needle to weave in all the ends. And then I like buttons, so I added little buttons over here. So you might need, little buttons depending on the type of cozy you're making. So what I did for this one was I cast on 33 stitches. I actually knit up a small sample first. So cast on maybe like 9 stitches, just like I did here, and just knit up a small portion using the pattern. It's also good to, practice the pattern that way. But once you've knit up the small portion, you can measure the length, or the width rather, of the piece, and also stretch it. I'm just gonna go ahead and transfer these 2 stitches here. So all my stitches are on 1 needle. And so once you've made your work, bind it off, and then this pattern lays quite flat, so you don't have to necessarily block it. But what I would do is I would stretch it to see what's the stretched width as well as what's the non-stretched width. And the reason for that is because on your mug, if you just measure the circumference of your mug and try to make your actual width that much, then when it goes to fit on your mug, it's going to be quite loose. So you want to knit just a little bit less than the circumference of your mug. The width needs to be a little bit less, and then once it stretches, it's gonna fit the whole mug. And so that's something to be aware of when you're deciding how many stitches to cast on. Just make sure it is an odd number of stitches. Once you cast on your stitches, follow the exact same pattern like I just showed you to do the 2-color B-stitch all the way to the end. And what I ended up doing was I ended on a row 4. Now, it depends on the size of your mug and the height of your mug. Note that this pattern will really work for mugs that have straight edges. In my case, it ended up being good where I was able to end it in row 4, because for the height of the mug, you want to make sure that the bottom part lines up pretty much close to the end of the mug, but the top part is a little bit less than the top, right? Because you want to drink from here. So you don't want this going all the way up to the top and curling around the upper brim of the cups. It really doesn't matter if you don't, if you end up on a row 2 and that's the right height or close to the right height, that's fine also. I think at the end it'll still look good. To end the cozy, I actually did 1 row of a knit 1, purl 1. So just a regular knit 1 and then a purl 1. On the next row, I cast it off, but I cast it off in pattern. So what that means is I knit the first stitch, then I purled the next stitch, and then I passed this over to cast it off. Then I knit the next stitch and cast that over. And the reason I did this versus just a regular cast off where you're just going to knit all the stitches as you cast them off is I wanted a little bit more flexibility at that top brim of the cozy. And you can see here it's a little bit more flexible than if you had just cast on a regular cast off. It tended to be a little bit tighter. After you're done, you're gonna weave in all these tails. I have a little mini mug and I had this sample that I'd knit up. In this case, I used blue as my main color and the gray as the alternate color. And so here you'll see I have this, and when I stretch it, it meets almost right up here, right? So that's what you want. In this case, again, maybe I could have cast on a couple more stitches and that way it won't be as tight a fit. But it's up to you how tight of a fit you want. You don't want it super loose though, that your cozy, starts to kind of fall off. And then once you've weaved in all your ends, all you're going to do is you're going to make little loops using a crochet hook. I ended up putting 3 buttons on here, or and three loops on here. So I put one here, and one in the middle. And for that, I just inserted and pulled the yarn through. Let me try that one more time. And pull the yarn through. And then joined it, and then I just made a chain. Depending on how big of a loop you need, you make your chain and then put it back in here to join it again, and then snip your yarn, leave a little bit of a longer tail, snip your yarn. And then, haha, fun, you have one more tail to weave in, but it's not so bad. So this is how you'll add your loops if you want to go with the loop. And then on this side, you're going to add your button of your choice. Now in this case, it's a smaller one, so maybe a smaller button like that. And I just used regular sewing needle and thread to attach this. And then this will go around it like that. If you didn't want to do the loops and the buttons, then the other option is to actually seam the 2 ends after you finished the work, but leave a gap in between for the handles. You can then slip it on like that and then bring it over, and ta-da! This one, as you can see, this cast off edge ended up a little bit tighter, and now as I'm looking at it, I don't think I did a knit one, purl one cast off here. I did a regular cast off, and this is what I was talking about, where by doing that knit one, purl one cast off, you get that little bit of extra flexibility at the top, so it doesn't cinch so tightly. So I do hope you give this one a try. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. This means a lot. Hoping to see you all again soon on another video. Thanks and happy knitting!